What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers. And, of course, as you know, it is Tuesday, which means it is our Vols weekly recap, weekly report, talking about what the Vols did this past weekend. Came up short against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Final score in that game, as we know, 37-20. Talk about that and also look forward to, of course, their upcoming matchup this week against the Kentucky Wildcats in their SEC showdown. And, of course, as you all know, here it's not just game analysis. We're also like to talk legends. Last week we did the Sugar Vols. This week we're going to be going back and doing a respective player, but we're not going to give it away quite yet. You got to stick around. You got to see who we have. But I will tell you this, it's a big hint. He's one of the best linebackers in Vols history. We'll leave it up to you in just a few minutes. But joining me here today, of course, is my co-host and former Vol legend himself, the one, the only, Joey Klingsko. Joey, how you doing this afternoon?
Logan, I'm great today. How are you?
Can't complain, sir. Can't complain. Nice day today. And, of course, you guys, if you enjoy this Vols weekly recap, like, comment, share, subscribe. We go live here on the channel each and every single week. So, Joey, let's go ahead and dive into it. Of course, we talked about the Vols and their tough matchup against Alabama last week. We saw how it went this past weekend. Tough loss by 17, final score 37-20. So, first question for you up on the docket is, what's next for Tennessee? They're currently 5-2 on the year, still a very solid overall record, but as we know, both losses are in SEC play. So what do you think is up next for Tennessee as a team?
Well, it's going to be tough for Tennessee to get to the SEC championship with the 5-2 record and 2-2 in the division. So that's going to be tough. And they're going to need help to do that. And they're going to need help, quite frankly, to get into the playoffs. Their schedule is they have winnable games on the schedule, but losing to Alabama is going to be tough from the standpoint of you can't have a letdown the next week, which is this week, playing Kentucky, because Kentucky took Texas to overtime last week. Defensively, Kentucky's a really good football team, so they play tough, and you can't let one loss turn into two losses. So they have to find a way to get themselves back together. It was a tough game in in Tuscaloosa last weekend. That was the first really big challenge for a fairly young team in certain positions to go into Tuscaloosa, into that environment, and be productive. They didn't really start fast. They had a couple turnovers. So, the things you can't do on the road, they did, which ultimately hurt them in the end.
Yeah, and, we say it for years and years now. You can't make mistakes against good SEC teams, especially like Alabama, right? And you've said many, many years, of course, with Coach Saban, but that seems to have continued with Coach DeBoer. He's kind of corralled all of the negative attention, all the backlash he initially got. I haven't heard a peep in a while, so I think that he's finally starting to win over some of the faithful out there. But yeah, just a tough loss for Tennessee. We knew it was going to be a tough matchup, obviously. On the road, heated rivalry. You saw all the fans smoking the stogies in the afterwards after the game. So I know that hurt a little bit for you and for all the Vols fans out there. But it's tough, though, because if you ask the question, are the playoffs still available for Tennessee to get in? It's like, yes, but also there's so many other factors, because I think there's 8 or so teams that are ahead of them currently in the SEC, and they're all ranked in the top 25, if not all in the top 20. So I still think personally they do have a chance. They are ranked number 17, so they're on the outside looking in, but there's still a handful of weeks left in the season. And with the way things have gone this year, with all the big upsets we saw just this past weekend, honestly, anything's possible at this point in time.
Well, without question, yes. Does Tennessee have a chance? Absolutely. They need help. Quite frankly, they need help. They need a couple upsets to happen throughout the year. They need to continue winning, obviously, because I don't think a 3-loss team that's probably ranked outside the top 20 at that point will get in. So they have to right now they're sitting on 2 losses. So they have to continue win. They have to take care of their own business and get help from a couple other teams. Now, other teams have some big games coming up, so we'll see how it shakes out.
Now, you mentioned getting some help, and I think that's what the offense has been kind of saying here, because they said, defense, we need some help here, guys. It's been a rough go at it, and like I said, I know they had a lower scoring game, only 20 points, but if you give up 37, that puts you at a pretty much the majority of ball games, unless your offense is clicking. at that rate that Alabama was. So let's talk about the defense, because we touched on it last week, but it just hasn't looked quite as sharp, obviously, as you want as a team. At this point, 7 games deep into the season. So let's start talking to Joey. I know, we've been watching these games, we've looked at the matchups, but I mean, what do you think is wrong going on with that Tennessee defense? They just cannot seem to get get on the right track and put the right step forward.
Well, the pass defense has to get better, and I'm not sure how you improve. Well, I have ideas, but I'm not sure how you improve it in a short period of time. The thing that are killing them right now is, I don't know if it's scheme or personnel or a combination of both. You have your top corner out, so you have a young guy playing in his place. So you can't do the same things with the young guy that you would have done with the veteran. So that's where scheme come in. You have to understand the personnel. You have to change up the scheme a little bit from that point. And then up front, you have a pretty solid group to rush the passer in tandem. You don't have that great individual rusher that you've had in the past. That's hard to get year in and year out. But that's where scheme comes in. You have to scheme up pressure. And I'm not sure they've done a great job of doing either one of those things. So when you're hanging in the middle, not really being super aggressive on the front end and on the back end, you're probably being a little too aggressive with the scheme you're using. Then you end up being a team right now that's giving up right at 32 points a game. And again, that's a hard formula to win football games, because now you're depending on your offense to score almost every time they get the ball.
And you mentioned scheme. I feel like if they were to maybe change up some schemes or some different personnel, whatever, obviously the staff over there thinks could be the issue at this point. I think this is really the game to do so, Joey, because you're coming in against a team, and with Kentucky, they're currently 2-5 on the season, even though they are, 2-4 on the season. They have lost 3 games in a row. But as you mentioned, they took Texas to the brink. They took them to overtime, and they almost came away with a win, just fell short. Close 16-13 matchup there. I think the defense for Kentucky looked good, but the offense, they've still struggled this year. Only got, I believe, 63 points for them on the season. So I think if you're Tennessee, if you want to get your defense right, if you want to get them some confidence heading into the remainder of the season, this is, I think, to me, a pivotal point for that defense, for the rest of that brass over there. What are your thoughts?
Well, absolutely. And I think, there are no moral victories in football. You either win the game or you lose the game. But I think Kentucky came out of the game feeling pretty good about themselves. They lost to Texas. They took them into overtime. And Kentucky's quarterback he was 31-39 for 258, no touchdowns, interception. I think his name is Carter Boley. And
Carter Boley, yeah.
Guess what? He didn't play bad. So now he's able to take that momentum into the Tennessee game. And what's Tennessee's Achilles heel right now? It's pass defense. They've struggled versus the pass defense. So it's not going to be an easy game. Tennessee should win the game, obviously, because Tennessee has more depth. They're stronger up front on both the offensive and defensive line. Kentucky hadn't been a team that could run the ball well all year. And Tennessee's run the ball well pretty much all year at will. So Tennessee should win the game. Kentucky had a couple special teams snafus in the game that allowed Texas to get really 2 really good punt returns that really not only helped set up the victory toward the end of the game, to get it in overtime. But Tennessee really needs to take every game as if it's a playoff game. This is our chance to go to the playoffs. So right from this point on, we're in playoff mode, because that's the only way we're going to get to the playoffs. We got to win the Kentucky game again, but it's one game at a time. You can't look forward to Oklahoma the next week. You have to play Kentucky now and then look forward to Oklahoma. So you can't go to sleep on Kentucky here.
No, you definitely don't want this to be a trap game. We've seen a lot of that this season. Teams who overlook or just don't maybe do as much scouting and whatnot of their opponents who they think are lesser, and they come in, they get beat, they get upset. If you look at Miami, who was ranked number 2 in the country, they lost to Louisville, an unranked team.
Correct.
And Louisville looked great. Miami looked like they didn't know what the heck they were doing out there. So you can't overshadow. You can't just underestimate your opponent. I think the Vols will look better this week. I think, like I said, defense, this is your time to step up here if you want to be serious about getting into that top 12, into the college football national playoffs. And I also think, too, just talking about the quarterback play, we haven't talked about Joey Aguilar so far yet. But I think that this will be a good kind of a bounce back game for him. I think that he can look well against this Kentucky defense, which it does have a little bit of holes in it, but I still think that it's still going to be kind of a tougher test. But I think that Aguilar, like I said, he was able to keep Tennessee in it for the most part. Had a couple of issues, but I think he can correct it this week against the Wildcats, and hopefully Tennessee can get back on track after getting derailed last week. But Joey, let's get your final thoughts here. Any other opinions you got about Tennessee coming up against Kentucky this upcoming weekend before we get into, of course, our legend segment?
Well, I think Joey's been the most consistent part of the offense, quite frankly, and I think he'll come out. He'll be ready to play. I would like to see the receivers not drop as many balls. They've done that, unfortunately, too much this year. So, and Kentucky's a big game. Kentucky is one of the 3 consistent games that will be on the schedule. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Alabama will always be on the schedule. So that tells you how Kentucky's going to look at the game. And Tennessee needs to take that same focus going into this game and understand that if they don't play their best, if they don't bring their A game, and Kentucky does, then they have an opportunity to lose this game. So the key is going in with complete focus. A nameless, faceless opponent, you go in and let the hard work you do in practice this week show up on the field on Saturday.
Well said. I think my final thoughts will be for this upcoming matchup here. It's going to be a 7:45 kick out there in Kentucky. So Tennessee are going on the road. Going to be a hostile environment, of course. So they're going to have that extra motivation coming into this game. I think this should be a game that I think they should handily win. I don't think it's going to be any extraordinary blowout, but I think that, if you get a solid win by double digits, you walk away, going into the rest of the season, your head held high, and you kind of regain some of that confidence after that tough Alabama loss. So I think the Vols are going to look good this week, and let's see if they can get back on the right foot. So let's get into our legend segment, Joe. We always love talking Tennessee history and Tennessee football players of the past. And today we're talking about, of course, the tremendous linebacker known as Mr. Al Wilson. Joey, I got to know what were your thoughts and what made you want to go with Mr. Al Wilson this week and highlight his career at Tennessee?
Al was a special player. He was a first-round draft pick. He was tough. He's a Tennessee kid, so he's from the state of Tennessee. He wanted to be a Vol, and he came in there, and you know what? He set Tennessee on fire. And you're talking about someone that exudes leadership ability and toughness. He played with a standard, and his standard was based on toughness, physicality, hard work, effort. He did all that in spades. And Al Wilson is a great representation of what Tennessee linebackers should be and should play like, and the mentality they should have.
Yeah, no question about that. And of course, we know Al was with the Volunteers program from 1995 until his senior year in 98. Of course, we're going to talk more about that 98 season, magical season here in a little bit. But, he started off his career. He played a little bit pretty sparingly his freshman year, which, a whole lot of freshmen, especially back in, the mid to late 90s, they didn't see a whole lot of play. So that's how Coach Fulmer, at the time Coach Phil Fulmer, that he believed in Al. He saw a lot. And like you said, the hard work, the grit, the dedication that he showed on the practice field, in the weight room, in the classroom as well. Obviously, that went over into the locker room, into the head coaching's office, and they said, we got to get this kid on the field any way we can. He played a little bit of backup linebacker in some sparing roles, but was on the special teams unit as well his freshman year, where I wouldn't want to see this guy, Joey, barreling down at me on the kickoff return. And like I said, he made the most of his due. That's Tennessee had a great year that year as well. 11-1 to cap off the year. They won the Citrus Bowl against Ohio State that season. And you saw just kind of a flash that, bits and pieces of Al Wilson, if you're a Vols fan or a teammate or whatnot, and, just watching from afar. But once once that freshman year ended, that sophomore season, Joey, he made his name, heard around the country, and what was kind of the start of his real career and real journey for the Volunteers program. So let's talk about that sophomore year in 96. Finished it with, I believe, 92 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble as well. We'll talk more about forced fumbles here a little bit later, of course. But he had some big games against Georgia and Alabama, a couple of highlights against some ranked opponents. But let's talk about that sophomore year and how Al Wilson kind of emerged as the next kind of great Vols linebacker. You saw the early stages of it.
Al Wilson was a great downhill player. I mean, he was sideline to sideline because, he had the great speed. and he was physical on contact. I mean, he was a not back tackler, as they call it. I mean, once he hit you, you didn't fall forward, you went back. And I think that showed up then because his speed and his toughness, his ability to take on blockers, to run to get hands on them, run through them, and he was again. I'm going to say this again. His leadership was infectious because his toughness permeated the whole defensive side of the football. And you know what? Is no substitute for a great leader. And Al Wilson was a great leader for the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, no doubt. You said knockbacks, but I'll say knock you out your cleats type speed and power with the weapons that he had in his arsenal. And going into the junior year, that's really where I don't know if I'd say he hit his peak, but he was going up that mountain for his career's sake. I mean, 119 tackles that junior year, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Got his first All SEC honors that season as well. In the championship game, SEC championship against Auburn, he had 10 tackles. Played in the big moments. He shined. Tennessee won that game. Remember, they rallied, won 30-29, close matchup there, and then lost in the Orange Bowl, of course, to Nebraska with the Cornhuskers. Great team back there in the late 90s. But he looked good. Had double-digit sacks in that game as well. So you saw, just dominance all season long. He's well earned from it with the All SEC honors, and played well in the big games. Won the SEC. Couldn't win the whole enchilada, as you like to say, against Nebraska, but you saw, that definitely, I think, if I was a fan watching at home at that time, or if I was a scout, that is where I start to kind of, highlight the name Al Wilson on my draft board and say, all right, this kid, if he wants to come out, we'll snatch him up. But Al, went back for his senior year, of course, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But let's talk about that junior year real quick, and how he went from kind of an emerging starter guy who, started off mostly special teams, played a little bit of linebacker. Sophomore year, got a couple more snaps after some good play. But junior season, they said, all right, here's the keys. This is it now. Let's see what you can do full time. And he did not disappoint. Again,
his leadership ability showed up in spades his junior year. Going into his senior year, he was an impact type player. He was a player that was respected not only by his team, but by his opponents. And again, football is a physical sport, and he played with a high level of physicality. And you always knew when Al Wilson was on the field because he made an impact.
Yeah, you saw it. You felt it if you were the opposing team, and especially that senior season. We got to talk about that, of course, ending his career with the Vols there in '98. Team captain voted on that year. And, of course, we got to talk Florida game. We just passed the anniversary of it last month, give or take, around this time. 12 tackles, 3 forced fumbles in what a lot of people call, of course, the Al Wilson game. I mean, hey, rightfully so. A lot of teams don't fumble 3 times at all in a game, let alone one individual causing all 3 against Florida. So just that performance alone, as we talk about it 25 plus years later, a lot of people still look at that as one of the best defensive games, not just for Al Wilson, not just for that team, but for the history of the Volunteers program. A lot of people have that very highly rated in terms of the legacy of that team and how Al was able to just really make Florida look silly with all the dominance he had that day.
When you talk about great linebackers in Tennessee history, Al Wilson is up there. He's up there. He's one of the top 2 or 3 linebackers to ever play at Tennessee. And for him to be an inside backer, not an outside backer, was even more impressive because, those are the guys that are calling the signals, getting everybody together. And again, the fact that he was a captain, he's a leader, and he led by example. He talked big talk, and he backed it up every time he stepped on the field.
Yeah, and of course, we know in that '98 season is when the Vols got the national title, won it. They beat SEC in the SEC championship. They went over Mississippi State. Him and Wilson and the rest of the team held MSU to just 14 points, which is just dominance in a big game format like that. And of course, you get the win against in the BCS national title at the time and the Fiesta Bowl against the Florida State Seminoles, and a magical win that my families that that loves Tennessee and everyone else, they still talk about good about to this day. And obviously Al Wilson was a major factor in that win and really just the entire season in general. Finished year with a career high 77 tackles, solos, that is, 4 sacks on the year, 5 forced fumbles, and then of course SEC, all SEC, and team went 13-0. As you mentioned, he was drafted by the Denver Broncos, went on to play for them for a very solid career in the NFL, multiple Pro Bowl time selection, made his name, heard around the NFL as well. So just I didn't hear a bad word about him, about Al Wilson, as his character, just a just monster on the field, for not just Tennessee, but for Denver as well with the Broncos. And just someone who, a lot of people study the greats, and you look, throughout just the history of time with all these players. And if you're a Tennessee fan, if you're a linebacker, training and you're starting out, watch some Al Wilson tapes. To watch some footage on YouTube, man. And just it goes to show that, if you just put your head down and do the work like Al did for all those seasons across the NCAA and the NFL, that you can carve out a nice career for yourself and some great personal accolades to go along with it, like Al had with championships, the SEC, all SEC honors, being drafted in the league and going to the Pro Bowl, and just having a marvelous career throughout his entire football playing career. But Joey, let's get your final thoughts here on Al Wilson. He is our Vols legend we're highlighting this afternoon.
Well, Al was a great credit to the University of Tennessee. Obviously, he was a kid from the state of Tennessee. When you talk about Tennessee linebackers, you have the Jackie Walkers, you have the Al Wilsons, you have the legacy to Dale Carter. Dale Jones left in his last couple of years at Tennessee. There have been some, and I'm missing a few. There have been some great linebackers, some guys that big, can run, all scattered all over the place. But Al Wilson was probably the most physical of the bunch, and his leadership permeated all throughout the organization.
Well said, no doubt about that. And like I said, it was fun watching Al, watching some old footage of him, just reading up on him. And, it's always nice to highlight these guys who, we talk about them in their heyday and when they were on top of the world. And, as just time goes on, you kind of forget about stuff. But then you go back, of course, look back at the greats. You mentioned a slew of legends there with Al. Glad we were able to highlight him here today. And, for the fans out there who are watching, I'm sure you've got some personal highlights about Al Wilson and that magical run there in the late 90s. So drop us a comment on Facebook and YouTube. Let us know what your favorite Al Wilson moment was, or that 90s era Vol team. And, if you had any favorites on there as well. And, of course, want to hear your thoughts and comments on, of course, the upcoming matchup the Vols have this weekend going up against the Kentucky Wildcats. Joey Clinkscale, as always, pleasure talking with you, sir, once again on the Vols Weekly Recap. I've been your host and producer, Logan Laters. Till next time, enjoy your weekend, everyone. Go Vols, and we'll see you on another live episode of 100 Yards of Football.